Are you here for more SPFBO content? Because if so, you're in the right spot. Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Bree and this is 4 Paws in a Book. Today we are going to be continuing our journey through SPFBO 10 or SPF box, and we are reading the 10 books that were in my batch. I am on Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy's judging team, and it's my job to find a semi-finalist for her. And today we are going to try to do that. I will have a couple of videos linked down below and up above that kind of go into this a little bit more. I already did one video where I read 3 of the books, and I also did a video introducing my 10 and like the synopsis and everything about them. So in this one we're going to be reading 3 more books to try to find a semi-finalist. In this vlog I have 3 very different books. So the first one is going to be A Rose Among Thorns, and this is a cozy fantasy mystery. It is set in our world. There is like, it's kind of contemporary in nature, but there are witches and magical creatures and a disappearance of an important person. The next one we have is Courier Quest, and this is a literary RPG book, which is not a subgenre of fantasy that I have read a lot of, so I'm really interested and really curious about this one. Essentially it is a person who has been like transported into this portal world, and the magic system is very much like a video game where you level up and you like, you know, you store things in your inventory and stuff like that. So not something that I've read a lot of before, but a very interesting concept. And finally we will have Odd and Ed, and this is a horror fantasy. It's set in the 1980s and there are 2 siblings, and one of them, like, their soul has left their body. Not really sure how that's going to work. I love horror genre blends. I feel like horror can be incorporated into a lot of different genres, so I am very intrigued by this one. With that said, let's get into the vlog portion of the video. Hello, I'm trying a new setup, a new angle, and I kind of like it. Anyways, hi, hello. I am back from Steamy LitCon, and I finished A Rose Among Thorns while flying out there. I read the entire thing on the 2.5-hour flight that was on the way out there. Here's the thing. This competition is so interesting because the idea is that we want to make sure that we are picking objectively the best book in our group, and so we do have like a whole like algorithm to be able to do that, or like a whole spreadsheet of like, you break down the plot and the characters and the writing style and the world building and all this other stuff. So there is like a little bit of like math and logic to this. I feel like this book has an audience, and the audience is probably the same people that liked Small Miracles. This is a little bit cozier than what I typically go for. It's definitely like a contemporary fantasy, but there's this like banter between our 2 main characters, not in a romantic way. Like, there isn't a romance, or at least there wasn't in the first book. It just felt like a very platonic kind of like, we're stuck together and we have to solve this mystery together. And it was funny. There were some like real comedic moments in that book, and like I don't know, I just had a good time with it. It was fun. I don't know that I've read something quite like this book before. It felt very low stakes. I mean, there were like high stake things that were happening. Essentially, she's here to watch this garden for her grandma, who like went on a yoga retreat, but turns out A, the garden is magical, and she should not be messing with it, and B, she wasn't on a yoga retreat. She's might be kidnapped. And so obviously you can't really go to the police because there's like magical elements to it. The magic system I think was really interesting in the fact that like you could shift into human, like you were able to like basically make humans think you were human, even though like one of the characters is a fawn. Overall, I had a really good time with this one, and this one is definitely going to be in the running, stay in the running for the semi-finalist possibility, and it'll be competing with the 2 that I read in the first vlog that I decided to keep, and then whatever else going forward. Who knows? With that, we're going to move into the next book. Hello, I've started my 2nd book for this project, so my 5th, 6th, I don't even know, book for SPFBO, but I started Courier Quest, and this is such a different book than what I was like, what I'm used to. I don't know that it's different than what I was expecting, because I was expecting something a little bit comedic, something a little bit like light and fun, and this is doing that. I ended up getting the audiobook off of Audible because it was part of like the WhisperSync thing. So if I got it on Kindle Unlimited, then I could just pay a couple dollars and got it on audio. And I think that was 100% the right way to go with this book. This audiobook narration is just, it's fantastic. The production level is so good, and that's not something that I can say usually about self-published books in general, self-published books in general. This book is definitely for fans of John Scalzi, which I know is a weird comparison because the concept of the book and the like actual premise of the book is very different than anything John Scalzi writes. He's more like sci-fi, but that comedic element of this book and just the like lightness and it's quirky, right? I feel like if you like John Scalzi's writing, you will like this book. It also very much has like a D&D aspect to it. It's not D&D in like the type of game, but it's very much like video game, like fantasy video game. Does that make sense? But like a funny type. Not like Skyrim or anything that's like dark and mysterious and broody. Like it's fun and quirky, and that's always what I associate D&D with. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of the campaigns that I have played have always been quirky. But so like if you like those types of like gameplay, I think that you would like this. And then also from last year's finalist group, if you liked Arrival Most Vile, I think this one could also work for you. The audiobook is definitely the way to go. I didn't try it reading it physically, but only because I had such a good time reading the audio or listening to the audio. And at this point, like 75 to 80% of my reads are done through audio. It's a way of life at this point. I do think that it's probably a little bit too long at this point. I'm about like 30% of the way into it, and I do feel like we are meandering a little bit more than we should. We jumped into the world so quickly, and so it was like we didn't even get like an initial character set up. It was like boom, we are in the world, and now that we're in the world, it's very much just like introducing the characters. And so there are some times where it feels a little bit repetitive because our main character is kind of like discussing the same thing over and over again every time he meets a new like NPC essentially. So that's the only thing that like I feel like maybe it's dragging a little bit, but the vibes are there, and it's like a fun time reading it. So I'm gonna be finishing this one up as soon as I can, and we'll move on to our next read. Hello, I'm here because I finished Courier Quest. I am going to be giving this officially, I'm going to be giving it 3 stars. This book, I think the gimmick lost its appeal as we got further along into the book. I really liked the idea of like the narrator being the like person that is guiding you through this video game and like telling you about like your inventory and that your next level might be more difficult. But I think that shtick got kind of old quickly. I do think that if you like D&D, you will like this book. I think that if you like the cozy type of video games, you will like this book. That's the vibe that it's giving, right? Like honestly, it reminded me of playing Spyro as a kid, if you remember what that is, where it's like the stakes, while they like within the game feel high, they really aren't. But the book started getting really repetitive. I think that it was too long. I think we probably could have cut out some of the quest, some of the adventures, just to kind of make it a little bit more concise. And if you like this style of world building, this style of story, maybe like this size book wouldn't bug you, but for me, I kind of just like wanted the plot to move on. And for me, like the characters just did not have enough nuance, enough of their own like backstory, enough of their own character, right? They felt very two-dimensional. I will say, however, and I think I said this earlier on, this audiobook is fantastic. The audiobook production, the quality of it is so great. You can kind of hear like the background noises and stuff like that, that just kind of really encompass this immersive experience. So I highly recommend the audio experience. Like that's the only way that I listened to it. I didn't even try reading it physically, but the audio is very, very good. With that being said, this does have a lower rating than A Rose Among Thorns, as well as the 2 books that I carried forward from the first vlog. So I am going to be taking this one out of the running. The other person in our group that has this, as of filming, has not read the book yet, so it's not officially eliminated, at least, like I said, as of filming this. I will come back at the very end of the vlog and give you any updates to any eliminations. So as of right now, it's not officially eliminated, but let's go ahead and read our final book for this vlog. I have a short and not so sweet update for you. I am about 35% of the way into Odd and Ed, maybe a little bit farther in, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna be DNFing this. Okay, for a couple of reasons. The first one is I think that this is not really fantasy. It's definitely like horror with some fantastical elements in it. So if we compare this to the other books that I have been reading, the other books in my group that are clearly fantasy that might have other elements in it, this one is horror that has some fantastical elements in it, if that makes sense. So that's the first thing. If we're thinking about this as like a fantasy competition, this does not have the level of fantasy that some of these other books have. The second thing, if I'm going to be perfectly blunt, I'm a big proponent of trigger warnings in books or content warnings in books. It's something that I have championed on my channel for a very, 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 very long time. Books need trigger warnings. And especially when you are self-publishing a book, you have the freedom and the authority to do that. I know that there are some publishing houses, when you think about traditionally published books, that kind of frown on doing that. However, we are seeing more and more that trigger warnings are becoming like just more normalized. This book had no trigger warnings at the beginning of the book. Nothing, okay? And there is a scene that felt very unnecessary, very out of the blue, torturing and maiming kittens for no reason. And it was just to have this like grotesque, like over exaggerated, I don't know. I have no idea why, to be honest. It didn't feel like it fit in the book. It didn't feel like it was necessary, and it could have been, but I stopped reading at that point. Listen, I'm not going to tell you what it was because that A, I'd like to stay monetized, and B, I'm not going to trigger you. But at about the 30% mark, there's a very grotesque scene, and I was not prepared for it in the slightest. And so because I was already having an issue with the world and the setting of this and just it not being as fantastical, when I got to that point, I was just like, I'm done. This is clearly not going to be a book that gets pushed forward into the semifinals, so I'm just gonna DNF it. I do think that like if you like books like The Ocean at the End of the Lane, you might like this. It's a very similar like style and vibe, but yeah, there was no content warning for that, and I implore authors, please put content warnings in your books. Some people really, really need them. Okay, it's perfectly reasonable to just scroll past it if you don't need it, but for people that do need content warnings, I cannot stress enough how much more I appreciate a book and an author when they've kind of given me a heads up that something's going to be in there. So for those reasons, this book is not going to be moving forward for me. The other reviewer has not read this book as of filming this, so it's not officially eliminated yet, but it will not be moving forward in my group. So that's gonna wrap up this vlog. The only book that will be moving forward into my like final collection will be A Rose Among Thorns. The other two will be eliminated for me. And if anything happens between now and when this video is posted as far as eliminations, I will pin a comment down below so that you will be up to date. I do have one more video coming with the last 4 from this, and so far it's going pretty well. But we will see what happens. If you would like to watch my first vlog from SPFBO 10, I will have it linked right here for you. And if you're new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!